Hello everybody and welcome back to the Florida Relocation Guide. My name is Adam Hancock if we have not had the chance to meet. And today what I want to do is a couple things. First, like the title suggests, we're going to talk about builder rankings. And I think when I'm toying with like this idea of ranking builders, and anytime I've seen it, like them being actually ranked, I know that people like that kind of stuff. I mean, there's a doom and gloom element to it, but it's also just everybody's trying to get an idea of quality and these kind of things, rightfully so. But in my experience when people are moving to Florida, one, I think I severely overestimate how weird of a density we have of new construction, like culture here, versus most places in the United States. Like maybe Texas, California, Arizona, but most places don't have like 50 new construction communities around each other. So you get down here, you're not only trying to pick a neighborhood, but you're like, maybe you haven't heard of any of these builders, or just a handful of them that build in your home state. And I do think that we overestimate a lot. Because like, what I see on my side is everybody buys the same 5-6 people, typically. And so I'm just like over and over and over talking about these same folks and getting deeper and deeper in that world. So one, I want to acknowledge that, and I think that's an important one. But two, if you could boil almost 100% of the decisions that I've had the chance to help people make down to like a four-headed monster of saying, is where do I want to live? Like, what's my geography that I want to be in? Cost, not just affordability, but like, should what I want to buy cost this? And then, is it in the location I want to do? So you like build a formula. 3 is quality. Quality I think is a weird one, but it's the eye of the beholder. I think when you see this title, the way I titled it, I think you would probably, the first thing you would think is they're ranked by quality, what is good and bad. I have a little bit of a different perspective on that personally, but someone would have an opinion about any builder. Like, ask anyone you know about Lennar, or Horton, and just kind of see. And I think there's probably some truth to quality issues and some things. You maybe had a personal bad experience. But I think if we just take a broad brush, this is more of a not right or wrong. It's just everything has its place to me. Where you might deem as like a really bad quality builder, someone else is going to deem as more affordable for a single family house in perspective to the location they want to be in. And and this cascades up and down and all these things, right? So quality is a big element. And then lastly, just amenities and lifestyle. So what's the chance that you could get the perfect world of all 4 of these in one place? But like when you're trying to work through this and then you add the builder names on top of this, your decision, if you buy a new construction house, it's going to either involve all of that or at least most of it in a large part. Like you're going to work through this at one way or another. I don't know when it's going to hit you, where you're starting, all that kind of thing. Everybody gets to the same thing. You get the perfect scenario of 3 of them. It's not in the location you want to be in. You want to be in this location, doesn't have the builder you want, that kind of thing. So I think it's an ebb and flow. And that's why I think could be one of the most helpful conversations. Also, where if you've been watching me for a little bit here, you'll notice a clear format change here. I'm going to explain more about that. But the idea of what I wanted to move, not just like standing versus sitting or any of this kind of thing. I wanted a more helpful, authentic way to discuss my points of view. I'm obviously a rambler. These are long form kind of videos, but this is how I work through ideas. If you know anyone or you have spoken to me on the phone and I tried to explain to you based on a question you asked, like if you asked me like Neal versus Taylor Morrison, or like how would you rank these 3, and how I would try to articulate that to you on the phone, I think is probably a much more articulate way that I would explain it because it's very personal to you. It's a conversation. Well, when I go to make these kind of videos, I'm like, for this video, for instance, right? I have thoughts about, obviously I wouldn't want to just show up here and make it as chaotic as it could be, but I have thoughts about where these stand and like how I'd rank them and all that kind of stuff in advance. But typically I would sit down and be like, okay, I'm going to pick the 10 and then I'm going to rank them. And then I'm going to come on a separate day and I'm going to try to formally say that to you. Well, in actuality, like the day before, I was pacing around trying to figure that out. And I was like, okay, this one can't make the list. And I was struggling with these ideas. I was talking to people. And I was like, it'd probably be a way more helpful way if you're a viewer trying to relocate to be a part of that. Because that's what's happening. Like I'm not doing anything that I'm not doing all the time anyway, right? And I feel like my one-on-one conversations with customers are arguably way more helpful than I can sit here in an awkward environment talking to a wall on YouTube I can do. So that's what we're going to do. So we're really going to basically combine my research and my actual filming into one process. And I have I'm messing with this kind of setup here, not to be too kitschy, but I have a whiteboard here. So what I'd like to do in today's video is, in essence, is two major parts. In order to rank builders, we got to pick them. So I'm gonna make it a 10 list just because it needs to cut off at some point, and that's going to define what kind of builders make the list. But I think 99% of the population would be incredibly dangerous on this 10, even if they didn't pick one of the 10. That's part one. And part two, I thought it would be cooler versus I don't think it's a 1 through 10. I think it's a weighted formula, or just a regular formula with 4 ingredients that I just mentioned. I'm going to give a 1 to 10 ranking and talk through why I'm picking it. Just really think through it. On geography, on quality, on cost, in perspective, and on amenities. So we add those up, then we'll have a winner, if you could define it as a winner, at the end of things. So I hope you enjoy this new format, and let's hop in. All right, so step one, of course, is we need to pick our list of builders. And so I'm gonna move over to this whiteboard thing. I think it'd be the most helpful to have a list of the most representation. To have a unicorn custom builder that's amazing in a silo isn't near as helpful because if you don't pick that one, you're not in that price range, then the general conversation isn't as helpful. Perfect world, right? You can do what you want to do down here in Florida, new construction wise. So you have to have a length of time that isn't running out. It's not exciting now, but won't be relevant to you in February. You need to go to most parts of town and do the same thing within the neighborhoods and live a similar lifestyle. It gives you the best shot where you can actually pick where you'd prefer to live and not say, I like this builder and now I have to live in this location because of it. I think in that order is the most helpful. My list is going to revolve around that concept alone, but I'm going to try to kill 20 birds, one stone. I'm going to have particular builders here that serve the different price points, in-betweeners, all that kind of stuff. Taylor Morrison builds like crazy around this town. So don't take any preconceived notions into this conversation if you can help it. A lot of these builders that build awesome stuff here don't necessarily do that everywhere. Toll Brothers, Pulte, so you got to look at the Florida version. Not even the Florida version, the Sarasota version. Got to have Taylor Morrison. Got to have Pulte, again, just the abundance. I'm going to do Pulte brands because it makes sense in this conversation. Neal Communities, Neal doesn't build everywhere. Neal builds a ton around here. They're not everywhere. They're kind of they kind of compete with all these guys. They're coastal aesthetic, almost like a David Weekley or that, but Pat Neal is very, very involved in the area. So Sarasota specifically, I think you need Toll Brothers on here. Let's do Homes by Towne. We'll do Homes by Westbay. Mattamy, David Weekley. If you're still tracking with me here, you got MI Homes, stock development. I don't know, maybe too niche. We'll throw over here. Stock, Arthur Ruttenberg, Lee Weatherington, Anchor, John Cannon. Those are maybe too niche. Lennar, DR Horton, Coulter's a little niche. Sam Rogers, I think, too niche too. 1, 2, 3. I know some of this is going to be cut off. 4 Toll Brothers. This is no particular order. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. ICI, too niche. All right, I'm going to, just because of timing. Don't shoot the messenger. Toll Brothers and Homes by Towne and Homes by Westbay for the most part. Highest end if you can't. To me, you're not doing a custom home, even if you're not doing semi-custom technically, depending on the timing of how they package it. These are guys, if you don't want to jump to niche, all these guys, a lot of these guys are custom, semi-custom, or just don't build in crazy abundance. Like Arthur Ruttenberg, Lee Weatherington. These are the 1.5 to 3.5, 4 million guys that are it's different. Pinterest board level builds a lot of the times. They're not in as many areas, and they don't build, some of these build 50 homes a year. So to put that on the list versus the guys building 1,000 homes in one community amongst their 6, I'll let that rest. So Toll and Homes by Towne, though, not only are they building in multiple interesting areas right now, they were more interesting than the past, but also they get you the tier above maybe this, but below this. Homes by Westbay has emerged in more interesting than it has any other time for me in the last 24 months. In a similar vein to them, is they fill a void between DR Horton and Arthur Ruttenberg, for instance, in a community. They're $850 when someone's at $450 and someone's at $3 million. That's why I like that. Mattamy they build multiple communities, but they're also a major player in the Playmore district, the sexy one of Wellen Park. They're the master developer, and they have the first 55 and up I've seen of them ever in the area, in that same district. Like David Weekley, they built Payne Park in downtown. They built Emerald Landing in Waterside district of Lakewood Ranch. They built Fox Trace in Sarasota, but some of these are like little boutique communities. Really like them as a builder. They built a lot in Texas as well. I think if you had to make a representation, I think Mattamy would win out in like a storytelling, basically. If you loved two of these other ones on the list, then David Weekley I might bring up to you on the phone. But just for video's sake, we had to eliminate one. I think that's our list. And from here, we're going to go to a ranking, which I might do on the whiteboard here as well. And then we will add that up and we'll see the deal.
Hey guys, super quick interruption here. If you've been enjoying these videos at all, but want a way more personalized guide to your own relocation, you need to check out my newly released New Home Geeks Audit. No phone calls, no pressure. Fill out a really brief form, and I will personally send you my custom recommendations on how I would basically approach your move. This includes specific communities, ideal timing, and detailed next steps, all within a couple days of your inquiry. The link is in the description box below. Please check that out. And without further ado, let's resume.
I think I'm going to use Taylor Morrison to begin because while explaining what is a 10 out of 10, I need a builder that gives the best chance that we only have to do that once. 10 out of 10 on geography. I think timing and obviously location, but diversity of location matter. You need both. So you need to be able to go to every part of town that is meaningful, not any part of Florida, every part of town that's meaningful, and do something with the same builder in a similar way, but also in multiple timing scenarios. If you, like I said at the beginning, I think this has to be available for the next 15 to 20 plus months for it to be viable. You can do it now, you can do it at the end of next year or further out. So you need communities that have a lot of time left, or communities that have announced they're coming that haven't come yet. And the combination of all of that would make it equal a 10. Taylor Morrison gets really damn close to that conversation. You can go to Lakewood Ranch, but multiple parts of Lakewood Ranch. They're not in Waterside yet, but they're gonna be. They're coming to the southeastern district of Waterside in that new 5,000 home expansion that I'll try to pop up that video, but I spoke about that months ago. So it gets you to the sexiest part of one of the sexiest places in the entire state of Florida. I love that. Multiple parts of Lakewood Ranch, you can do the same, right? So you can do Esplanade in the upper part. You had resale communities that like Esplanade, the original one. So all of Lakewood Ranch. You could go down to Wellen Park and do the next coming soon one, Esplanade Wellen, which is going to be by the Mayaca Pines Golf Club. So that the other district that you would majorly compare, you could bump that against, and so it lets you do that juxtaposition, what everyone's doing, right? I'm not necessarily saying, can you also do, which is true for them, can you also do Parrish and Palmetto and Northport? It's more of like, what makes up the town? Northeast of town, south of town, and then the middle. The middle is the big crux where people miss out, right? Take Central Sarasota, can you do something in the middle? You don't want either of the large master plan areas that put you in a peacock location of the town. Can you do the middle? This case you can, and probably one of the best versions that exist today. It's called Sky Ranch. Taylor Morrison built their own mini community. It's gonna be like, they're expanding it, so you got timing. 3,000 plus homes are gonna be in there. They have an Esplanade, they have a Casilla, and they have a townhome development in there. So in all of these areas, we're talking 8 to 10 years, and just what I named that hasn't been, it was just what we know about's coming or already exist. And then all of these will have some semblance of very similar, if not identical models across the board, which I really like. You're getting really close to a 10. The only thing which is almost, I don't know if we're gonna have a 10 on this list, is downtown and the beaches. If you're gonna come to the southwest part of Florida and you go west and you're in the water, can you also do this on the beaches? Or let's say less than 4 miles from the beaches. In this case, the answer is really no. You have some niche new construction communities that are in that, but this one not in a big way. It's not an urban builder in that way. So because of that, when we talk geo, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna keep it like this so I don't have to erase this every time. We're gonna say they get a 9 out of 10. Let's talk cost. Cost, again, I think is a combination of perspective affordability, but also like what should things cost, and does the builder do enough different things that give a wide cost spectrum? So should the models that it's providing cost what they should cost, in my opinion, right now, not in 2020? Do they do enough different things where they have a low and a high price point? but they don't get crazy. And then also, like, this is where you start to build it, right? Then are they in a bunch of locations where you could go and do similar things in all these locations, or they do this here and then this here, and it starts to get weird, and then it starts to delineate value. Because why get you super pumped about the furthest part of Lakewood Ranch if you want to live in the middle of Sarasota, or you want to live in Venice? This is another one I think they do pretty well. With shades of gray, right? So like if I said a 10 out of 10 was what I just explained, I do think they have a lot of variety, right? They build a really nice paired villa collection that's attached. They build a really skinny single family collection that's like a 45-foot lot, like a Roma. They build a wonderful 52-foot product, the Lazio, the Farnese, 2,150 to 2,300 square feet. So not every builder does well with all of that. You might walk in a small home from a builder and be like, gosh, this is really boxy. And then walk in their 3,000 square foot and be like, this is nice, right? But like, and that's generally how people feel when you go to the look at those models on site. This one is, I think they do well at all those sizes I just named. One of the most popular models in town is called the Palazzo, which is the 62-foot product. They do great at that, and they have multiple models in that collection. And then even the 76 and the 90-foot product, which they don't do as abundantly as I would like. I mean, just build less homes, they're big or whatever. But they build a Lincoln and a Beacon. You do like 5,500 square feet on the Beacon. I like them all. I can't say that about most builders. So that's great. If we're gonna talk costs though, I really, really liked it in 2021. When the base price of the Lazio cost $450. The base price of the Palazzo cost $650. You had 30% on top of one of these. You got pool, it's decked out. And you're what you should be. You're 2,300 square feet. I get it's Florida, an empty nester. You could pay $1 million for a smaller house. But not only what it was and how it became the pricing it was today, which I don't love because it's a weird point in time, COVID and all this stuff. So it's purely supply and demand. But also, like, you start to really break what I like about stuff in totality if it costs too much for what it's worth. Because what you need is the most people possible to fit this model. 2,200 square feet, I only have 2 kids. A 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath with a den, that's tough. You have 3 kids, you have a mother-in-law, you have visitors, like, I don't know how that works. If it costs $1 million, then you're like, okay, who could possibly buy that besides like an empty nester that's doing pretty well? You start to alienate it. If that same exact house cost $530 without a pool, $615, $650 with a pool, a lot of people could buy that. Empty nester can buy it just rightfully so and more affordable to boot. They could sell that in 3 years for 7 something and it still has room there. But so that's my biggest issue with what happened here. Is that Lazio I just mentioned that used to cost like all in with the pool at $650? I did a bunch of them. $1 million right now. Maybe you can find one in the 9s. I've seen them $950 go under contract without a pool, with a screen-in paver patio, no pool. 52-foot wide. Which in turn makes the bigger version of it, the Lazio, which you used to be able to get under 9, which is awesome, which I loved it at that. It really made a lot of sense. That has to cost over $1 million. Well, then the Beacon that I sold at 1.2 has to cost 1.5, 1.6. Who the hell is going to get resale value from that? Like, if you buy, my problem is if you buy it today, does it ever have room to increase? And I mean, it's not a perfect world and you're not going to make a windfall like we used to, but that's kind of what I'm saying. If we had to rank a 10, like, that's what you're looking for here. Not only can you do a bunch of different things, but where builders start to, some I like within it. Now I don't like all of them. I used to like all of them. That's a big deterrent for me right now on cost. So where I would have said I was going to like an 8 to 9 again because of the variety. The variety is very abundant. It's amazing. I don't like that, and I think a lot of that happened purely because of supply and demand, and then it's situational based on like what's going on, which is very hard for a consumer to predict because it's not macroeconomics. Because of that, I'm gonna go 7. Quality is one where like there's probably nothing I could say that someone wouldn't argue. Which is fine. You have Taylor Morrison against all the custom guys or against just DR, Horton, and Lennar. Great. Like boom, it sets itself apart. It's binary. But where I am almost to a fault, trying to make people over aware of everything you can do. It's a no regrets model. In that world, then quality needs to be looked at differently. Doesn't make sense against everything else in the market, in the locations. Again, boom, boom, boom. Like nothing's in a silo. In all the things, all the areas we're looking at, doesn't make sense. How much flexibility do you have? That's another one that fits in the quality bucket for me. Can you pick your own options? Do you have to use their pool builder? Can you go outside of it? When can you do things? What's the deposit schedule? All that kind of thing. And then, of course, like just my experience, when these guys get busy, what suffers? Again, the big thing with increasing things to a price that I'm not comfortable with personally is that like fixtures that are in the house, like the base, like, so Taylor Morrison's a builder where you can't do anything separate. You pick your lot, you pick one of the models that fits on that lot, you pick the structural upgrades that affect the permit from a list that have prices, and you pick design options from a list that have prices that are already set. If they're not on the list, you can't do whatever you want. There's a lot of things that are on a list for a builder that builds at 650 that you should have other things on the list at a builder that builds at $1 million. That does not catch up. It's weird because it's subtle. Like all of this cost crap happened within 24 months. So you go to sit down and build that and you're like, gosh, I mean, I can't get the appliances I want. They don't even have the spacing for the fridge height I'm gonna want, even if I don't want their fridge and I have to get it out. They're making me take this refrigerator so they can get an occupancy certificate. I don't want it anyway. What am I gonna do with it after? That's all the crap that happens. And it's the subtlety related to price. So I think that's one, which would downgrade quality for me. Do I like it at a certain price, or if you need to sell it, you can start to get into appliances and base materials when it comes to countertops and floors don't matter until they matter, and they all matter. Do you have a pool or not? You get into 1.2, 1.3 million resale, and if you're buying one at 1.1, what's the end game? Those people, that's a deal breaker. Impact windows, like these aren't things that people flirt around with above a certain price point. Leave that alone. And then my just personal experience. They get busy. I've seen final inspections. I've seen people running around in socks at the builder the morning you're supposed to walk around, be happy about that build. And some have handled that well, some have not. Things happen. People are busy. Contractors are, whatever, company culture. All of that to say, I think Taylor Morrison sits in a lane where you build the house like you should for what it is. I think it's not a custom builder. It's not any of that. They have really nice base floor plans which allow you to envision the home. They have many, many examples they've done across town in this category, which allow you to go places and see what it could look like if you can't imagine things like myself. All the different examples of anything you would do, they've already done. You could probably go look at it. I like that. I've seen a lot of stuff happen when they got busy. I mean, they, not to be like derogatory in any manner, but like, I think they went way crazier than I think they could even have predicted, and I think they suffered a lot when it came to like the final stuff, the detail, the stuff that made it through inspection, which I didn't love. And then I do think that I can't buy them above a certain price on a certain size home, personally, based on the level of the home that they now compete with where they shouldn't have. Do they creep into a model where if you would have stepped back, like you start at 650, right, and you start to like bleed to another price range, which is fine, but you're still at the community. Well, if you're in that other price range, you build that house and now you see the actual price and you step back and you say, what can I get at that price? Maybe it's a Toll Brothers now, which you wouldn't have went in. Maybe it's Homes By Towne, which you wouldn't have competed with. Maybe it's Homes By Westbay in a custom neighborhood. And then if you would have actually compared those apples for apples up front, knowing that you had a starting price, you didn't build a price that snuck on top of you, then you might not like what you think you like after you see the alternative. And I get like, that's the thief of joy and all that kind of stuff, but I think that's the appropriate way to do it. It's just fresh eyes when you see it again, and you don't want the regrets again. All that to say, quality is a tough one. I'm gonna go 5. Lifestyle, amenities, I think they do amazing. You go in, you can buy a paired villa at Esplanade and you get unbelievable amenities. So we gotta say, like, are these amenities existing in most of the communities across town? That's a good, if we're building a 10. Are they priced at a range that makes sense with the HOA cost of what they should be, CDD aside? Do I like that? And then extras, right? If you go in one of these, what do you get that you can't get in other stuff? Most have neighborhood pools and that kind of stuff now. Well, their Esplanade brand's unbelievable. It is a full-on lifestyle resort. They're not only a full lifestyle director, but beautiful landscaping, beautiful grounds. They have spas, not only sports courts and all that, but spas. They have restaurants. Not every non-55 and up has restaurants. Bahama Bar at the pool gets a big jump in my mind for how people view this. I mean, they have food, like swim-up food bar service basically at their pool. And then they have wonderful golf courses. So I think, to me, it's an 8 because I do think that they do this, they're gonna do this in Waterside. They already do it in multiple other parts of Lakewood Ranch. They do it at Sky Ranch, and they innovate every single time. Their Sky Ranch has this like, they built like another Twin Lakes facility, if you're familiar with that, called Turner Park. They have like a quick service cafe, the hub, like kind of a co-working almost situation. They have like Esplanade has its own amenities. They're bringing a Bahama bar there. They weren't going to do that before. And then they're going to do this down in Venice as well. So like they're really getting close to like almost a 10. You don't have the beaches, but this is outside of that. But then, so I think if I could say anything, I mean, I think like I was hoping they went golf in Central Sarasota. Deeded or just golf access is getting difficult. I mean, in my opinion. I mean, you have Country Club and Lakewood Ranch. They've just expanded it, but it's privately owned. So like that's going to add more memberships. But at a certain point, like if you want to deeded golf right now, like you have the current Azario, you buy a resale, someone else's deeded. And these are 1,500 homes though, so 800 something memberships total. Mayaca Pines one's not supposed to have golf right now, at least not in a big way. And you know, like you run out of choices, then it's a bunch of Lennar. And so that's a problem if you really want to like be the everyday golfer in a community that you own the membership. I wish they would have done that in Central Sarasota with Sky. The 3,000 homes there, feels like there's space. So that's why I have them as 8, 16, 21, 29. The rest will go a little shorter, but that's the thesis. Homes by Towne, much smaller. Right now is the most active communities I've seen them building at one time. It's 3, and it's really just 2 and the back end of 1. And so that limits abundance and a lot of that kind of thing. So if we talk about Taylor Morrison getting a 9 in that category, so Homes by Towne is in 3 total locations. They're cool, but they're not going to be readily available to everybody. And it's going to get more delineated as you add more of these buckets. So Lake House Cove in the Waterside District, they were one of the first communities there. They were kind of the nicest one at the time. Because this is like the semi-custom, not quite custom. You can't really do everything, but you can do a little bit more than other people, a little bit more personal experience, but they don't build abundant homes like D.R. Horton or something because of that. They have a new version of, so that community is like tail end of everything, right? You can buy resales, but not a readily available option in 12 months. Shellstone is the new one. I've spoke about them a lot on the channel. It's very close to it. It's adjacent to it. It's also in the Waterside District. You can stay in the district. You can see what they did in the past. You can see this is what now you can do in the future. I like all that. And then they're only in one other place, and they're in Palmyra, which I really like their offering there, in Wellen Park. So you're either here or you're here. Not in Central Sarasota, not in Upper Lakewood Ranch, not close to the coast, not in between Venice and Sarasota, not in Nokomis or Osprey, or none of that. So if they're a 9, they're in the sexiest 2 districts. I keep saying that, but they're in the nicest 2 districts in the minds of the people. That's good. Like imagine if you only had 3 communities and you weren't. But you can't be anywhere near a 9. I'm gonna give it a 6. Cost, I really, really like them. They fill a void, a good void in 1.5 collections. And the other ones I think get weird depending on the thing. So that's gonna hurt them. But so like if you were like, okay, looking at Pulte or Taylor Morrison or one of these guys, and you wanted 3,200 square feet with a pool, 3 bedroom, 2.5 bath, maybe upstairs, maybe not, pool on a 65-foot lot. And you're like, I just want something a little nicer. Maybe you're like, these feel nicer, higher end or something, however you want to value that. Then maybe Pulte or Taylor Morrison or whatever in the same district, right? Because again, geography really matters because now you're just shopping. You either got to leave the district or you got to shop only the communities against them in the 2 districts they're in. That's why that's such a big one. Vastly limits all your options. But okay, so you're like, I want a little nicer than that. So you're like, maybe I'm looking at Toll Brothers, and that's how you get in those conversations. But then you're like, okay, well, what's even nicer than that? And then you realize the minimum nicer than that's like 1.8 million potentially. Wild Blue, Everly. And so you're like, well, that's a big jump. You know, I'm not looking to do all that. And so that's where it fills that void. So like Outrigger, Tideland, I really like. I'm naming models. Weatherly, Fairlead isn't my favorite, but it's a popular seller. The Islander, which is just the downstairs of the Tideland, all fit on that size lot. And you know, 2.8, 1.35 in Lakewood Ranch, 1.15 in Wellen Park. Really nice house with a pool. Like all that, that's great. Again, you can't do it in a bunch of locations, but this is where you start to run into maybe some issues for me. So maybe the collection under that, or the villas. Well, they're gonna have these small models, which I think are really cool. I've said it a lot on the channel. I think they're some of the most elegant models that are small that you could do. Really empty nester driven. They're not gonna be like the everyday family person necessarily, just because they're like cool niche, but they're expensive for what they are, for the size. But if you're at 18, 19, 2,000 square feet, and you start to get to the 6s and the 7s, just because the one above it's 1.3, then with an HOA and everything, if you start to just a pure investment, like say you did 50% down, 20% down, you have HOA, you have CDD, and you have a cost of that, like, and you're like, well, I would lose $3,000 a month on rent to do that. You start to get like, there's a reason that those formulas exist. So I don't love when things that you're like, how does this make sense for people in the future get too expensive? And then I think there's some stuff with like lots, and you could talk about quality, but I think one of the biggest issues right now in Lakewood Ranch that people are having is the premium of Lakewood versus the premium of Shellstone versus Palmyra, Lakewood Ranch versus Wellen Park, same exact models. That's a tough pitch for the staff to kind of have to like talk about like why, right? Because then you start to get into, was the land more expensive here? Is it like, which is nothing that a consumer wants to hear. It's not like, it's kind of like not our fault, you know, or do they just think Waterside's that much bigger than Wellen Park? That's what it makes people think. If I get $150,000 cheaper in Wellen versus Waterside, then you're like, is Homes by Towne telling me that this is a crappy area? Or was this land just too expensive for them? And that's why it costs that, which makes sense. It just might not work for you, but it makes sense. So I don't like that. And then also some of the lots are like $400,000-$500,000. I really hate that. Like, I'll say that all day long. It's not very palatable for a customer. Would rather like the package to be maybe more expensive. But if they're coming in, they're looking at a normal lot on an average size lake, costing $300,000 to $500,000 for the land that they're not allowed to buy separately. I don't know anyone that likes that conversation. That's been a really, really, really big deterrent for me in Lakewood Ranch right now with them. So it's just, you know, it's small builder stuff, I think. But like, if I'm just being candid, I particularly like this one collection. But a lot of it gets completely ruined by the quality of the lot in people's eyes, the way that the cost structure is packaged, and only having 2 locations that might not be ideal for you. Because of all of that, I maybe go 4, I think. Just because, I mean, if Taylor Morrison only got a 5. All right. Quality, I think this is where they jump up a little bit. They are, I think, really, really nice if you get the right one. I like all the small ones. I mean, not price aside, I like all of that. They let you do a little bit more than other people would. I like their deposit schedule's pretty lenient. Like they don't like kill you. They're way more open to conversations about stuff. They can't let you do anything you want. That's not their model, but way cooler about that. It feels much more boutique. There's a wonderful gentleman, Jeffrey Cave, Canadian guy that you might have worked with him at our organization. He decided to go to a builder at some point a few months ago. I mean, he likes kind of like he loves the new construction like I do, so he works for Homes by Towne now. If you catch him, like you'll have the most unbelievable experience of all time. If you get like the combination of us, now he's not only knowledgeable, but like they can spend the time. They have enough staff versus the volume they're doing. So their experience is nice, just like I feel about David Weekly. So I think quality, they do a really great job. I'm hitting all the buckets there. I'm going to give them an 8 on quality. And then just because you can't do anything you want, and it's not perfect. I don't love the lots, so it's not a 10. And then amenities, I think they've done nice, like in comparison, right? Lake House Cove, there's no like restaurant or anything, but they had this like, they got these long lakes. It's not the Gulf of Mexico, but it's not a conservation pond in a neighborhood. They had a water taxi down to the downtown. They're in amazing locations. So they introduced that idea of like, what is Kingfisher Lake? And they did this boathouse feel. Their aesthetic's really cool. Shellstone, I think, very similar. They're sharing this lake with Wild Blue. It's the other big lake there. They have their own amenities that are really nice, but they also have this like kind of public-private park, which has a bunch of stuff going on. What's that? I'm blanking on the name of that. Starts with an S. Can you look that up while I'm talking? I don't know, I'm blanking on the name of that, but it's a really nice park that's in addition to your amenities, so you get like a really nice communal lifestyle. Your friends can live at Wild Blue and John Cannon, you can live here and come together. It's kind of forced communal environments. It starts with an S, like look up like Shellstone's amenities. And then in Palmyra, it's nice too. There's a restaurant, there's a golf simulator, all that kind of thing. So I think if you're only gonna be in these 3, they've done really well. Now, there's no golf, not a restaurant in every single one, not availability in every single one. So what, we got 10, we got 18, we got 25 for Homes by Towne. So we got 25 and we got a 29. I think these 2 will pave the way where you start talking about Toll Brothers and some of these other guys who are very similar. So that's my number 2. Let's go Lennar, another peacock in this conversation. All right, so Lennar is one of the, next to D.R. Horton, one of the biggest volume builders that exists. They're building more homes than most people. They build, particularly in this area, they build not only a lot, but they build a lot nicer versions of stuff that they've done elsewhere in the Sarasota market. And it's interesting. It just kind of, in a lot of markets, you'd be like, absolutely not. A lot of people would if they built higher end homes or something like that, just because that's not them necessarily. But here they fill these little voids. So, all right, geography, they're in a lot of places. So if you take Lakewood Ranch, they have Polo Run, Lakewood National, they have Calusa National. They're in the upper districts and in the middle of the district, not in Waterside, so they're not in the lower part, so you only get so close. Central Sarasota, what I'd say about that is snippets of them floating around with the Sky Ranch area. Because Central Sarasota, if you wanted new homes, it was mostly artistry with Coulter and a little Cardell. Sky Ranch, Taylor Morrison. This is like parallel to Siesta Key. So Lakewood Ranch is maybe opposite camera here. It's northeast of downtown, then Central, and then Venice is down here. But I have seen, so they're building this Hi-Hat 3H ranch area, which is basically all the land that exists like east of the interstate, more or less. And there's all these like fights about it, because depending on where you stand on this, but people want to keep the land intact. They don't want all this blitzed and stuff. But at a certain point, you got to satiate all the needs of the people moving here. So you're trying to navigate the best as possible. I swear I've seen permits of their involvement in their eventual involvement in that, like in a big way, 2-3 years ago. So they will be in Central Sarasota, but you're going to be, this is a longer timeline. So that's something to consider. I think that it's a little bit up because I think they will be in all parts of town, but this isn't a 6 month from now thing. And then they're all over south. There's, you have Sarasota National, you have, which is Lakewood National's like counterpart, Grand Paradiso. This is all Wellen Park. Wellen Park Golf and Country Club is the new version of Sarasota National. And they're in a bunch of communities, a bunch of affordability. They have Antigua and a bunch of stuff like that. So you can go to most parts of town, get really close to the water. You can do that a little bit, but not in a big way, not in a meaningful way necessarily. So again, if Taylor Morrison's a 9 and Homes by Towne is not, this is kind of in between a little bit. I'd say it's almost like a 7.5. I don't know if I can do that. I'm making the rules, I guess. Okay, cost, they're a cost leader. They're going to provide, them and D.R. Horton can provide some of the most affordability you can get into a town that you want to get into. But you're weighing why, right? It's the reason they're building so much, it's economies of scale. You could say, a lot of these, they're using a lot of similar materials. Taylor Morrison, Pulte, like to say these guys are like vastly using some crazy premium at that level is not as exaggerated as people would think. That's food for thought, but they're also building a lot more. They're permitting them in advance. They're not, we'll get into that, but the optionality of what you can choose, like their control of that is what's providing the cost, providing the margin in which to do that. They're going to really win out there. Also, I do think they provide cost leading across multiple categories, right? So if you want to buy a villa, a condominium, townhome, coach home situation, you want to buy a larger estate single family, they're going to give you most likely one of the most affordable price points across all of those boards. They don't get real crazy on the higher end homes being like, we have a $1.3 million option and we have that. They operate that out of a different brand. And so I think you got to give them a really high ranking on cost, because that's why some of the others are not going to be that. I'd be thinking about giving them a 9. I think for this argument, you could potentially give them a 9. This what gets weird, right? Like you look at this, you're like, gosh, is Lennar going to rank number 1? So that's why I want to discuss it so heavily. Quality. This is your give and take right here, What is quality, right? They go really no frills. Granted, it's not good or bad necessarily. It's this is their business model. They're not coming out and saying we're Arthur Ruttenberg. That's not what they're doing. They want to win on volume. So what's going to come with that is like you have basically no options. You can maybe say I want this color counter versus this, or I would like this type of floor versus 18 by 18 tile, or maybe I'm going to do a pool. Other than that, it doesn't get much beyond that. Very limited options there. So if you're going to buy, this is how I really think you need to think about it. If you're going to buy a Lennar or D.R. Horton or one of these guys, you need to buy them for what they are. If you expect them to be something different, they're going to vastly disappoint you across the board. But so you need to like buy the best version of them. Don't make their house cost more than it should. So there's that. And then, I think like some of these guys, you get into the experience, and I think it's more checkered. Like if you walk into a Subway versus a Chick-fil-A in 5 different states, how consistent is it? I do think there's some part of that exists with some of these builders because of their business model. So I'm going to go 4, generous 4, maybe. And then amenities, they're kind of underrated actually. That's the weird thing about like the up and down is you say, okay, I'm going to grab like a coach home, but you buy that at Lakewood National. You have 2 of like the top ranked golf courses that exist in town on deeded golf. You have some of the most affordable fee arrangement to do so. That coach home might only cost you $270,000 fees aside. And you're like, dang, like I can't like make that like a crazy looking house necessarily unless I wanted to wipe it. I needed to just stay in that lane, but I just bought my way into deeded golf for that. And so where they go economies of scale on the homes, the amenities are really nice. Like Calusa National is the new version of Lakewood National. That's a great example. Grand Paradiso, like these are beautiful. Like the front of the communities, all of it. It's really nice. It would rival like some of these other communities that people really seek after. So I want to say that about that. And they also have a variety of the lifestyles. They do their really nice amenity communities in multiple areas. They do, per their business model, they do also try to provide even more affordability. They'll build no amenity communities with like no tile roofs, maybe not a gate, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to get like HOAs down really, really low. The total cost of ownership is going to get you on the HOA that then added to the CDD and all that trickle, and then your size home like maybe bears the biggest brunt of that tax arrangement. So they'll do communities on purpose that don't have that. So I don't think you can really ding them for that, and I think that's what wins here. But I'm going to say 7. So this is looking like a pretty solid score. So we got 11, we got 20, 27 and a half. And the reason I'm going so crazy here, and you might still think this is BS, but if I just came in and was like, Taylor Morrison 1, Lennar number 2, hey, Homes, people are like, what do you, like, so you don't have to agree with my ranking, but I do think you could at least give me the thought that you could somewhat be like, I see why you would say that. That's the idea here, and for my number 3.
Hey guys, super quick interruption here. If you've been enjoying these videos at all, but want a way more personalized guide to your own relocation, you need to check out my newly released New Home Geeks Audit. No phone calls, no pressure. Fill out a really brief form, and I will personally send you my custom recommendations on how I would basically approach your move. This includes specific communities, ideal timing, and detailed next steps, all within a couple days of your inquiry. The link is in the description box below. Please check that out. And without further ado, let's resume.
Okay, so now that Lennar is done, I think I'm going to go Pulte next, and it's the only one that I think makes sense to group, just because like they own multiple companies, but the ones they own are relevant. It'd be weird to break them apart more than add them to the list, I think. If that makes sense. So we're going to go Pulte Homes companies. So they own the significant ones you want to look out: Pulte Homes, Del Webb, the 55 and up arm, and DeVosta. Combination is what is interesting right now. When you talk about geography, they're a national builder, compete with Taylor Morrison, that kind of thing. They're everywhere. They might be closer to the 10 range. Sapphire Point in Lakewood Ranch. You have Avanti in Lakewood Ranch. Talon Preserve in Nokomis. Beach Walk down in Englewood. They're in Seaflower, so that gives you a coastal option. Central Sarasota is your issue. They're not heavily in Central Sarasota. I guarantee they'll be in High Hat Ranch, 3H Ranch. I'm pretty sure I saw permits about them too. That takes you out of the 10. Seaflower is 3.5 to 5 minutes from the water, and they own Beach Walk and they own Talon Preserve. So that puts you in like 2.5 miles. So it gets you closer. It gets you maybe like a 9.5, but then you lose Central Sarasota. I think it's going to get a 9. They have Del Webb Lakewood Ranch. They have Del Webb Catalina, both in Lakewood Ranch. Del Webb Bayview and Parish. Del Webb Sunchase. So significant players. Sapphire Point in Waterside. So most of the areas you can go to, I think it gets a 9. If they were in Central Sarasota, you might have a 9.5 to 10. Cost-wise, they're going to play a very similar game to Taylor Morrison. They're going to do a lot of different options on the paired villas, all the way through like small single families, all the way through not crazy big, but 60 plus foot range products for the most part. The price most of the time makes sense. They're 52 foot product, they're 62 to 65 foot product. They're going to have a lot of stuff without pools in the 5s and the high 4s. They're a builder that like you can do 3 bedrooms plus, but their 3 bedrooms might mean 3 bedrooms plus gets you all the way to 6. So it's kind of a lot more like a range of what you could do as far as like their base floor plans. They have a lot of floor plans. One thing about Pulte is you could go to a lot of communities that they own, they're the parent company for, and do something similar. Once you get the theme of what Taylor Morrison's doing or Pulte's doing, cascade that across the board. They're also large enough where they're basically everywhere. So from a cost perspective, they have a lot of something for most people if you like the brand. They've gone in and out of like, Sapphire Point's a great, or not Sapphire Point, Shoreview. Shoreview is a great, I think I said Sapphire Point for Waterside a minute ago. Shoreview was one of the first communities that hit Waterside District in totality. Sometimes Pulte gets amazing pieces of land and they build at prices that people aren't used to, because if that was not in that location, it would not near be that price. Shoreview is a great example of that. So people are saying like, I get it. I've built Pulte in the past and it wasn't this, but Shoreview is an amazing piece of property. It's very close to water, especially before Waterside, it was big. It's very close to the downtown Waterside place, big lakes. They're kind of working through that. Same with Taylor Morrison, you have those kind of conversations. We'll give them a 6. Quality, you're gonna see a very, very normal model. You can select your design, structural, your lot, and your base price. I've seen similar things that I mentioned with like Taylor Morrison and some other folks about at times of busyness. It's gotten, maybe like you could do a pool one time, now you can't do a pool, delays, stuff like that. That happens to a lot of folks though. They're not gonna blow you away when you walk in them for the most part, in my opinion. So that's why like the stay in your lane thing's important. I think quality, most people are gonna sit them and like, I think a 5 would be fair. Nothing wrong with it, it's just like, this is what this builder is to the market. And then amenities, I'd probably give them a little less than I give Taylor Morrison on amenities. They have very normal stuff in most of the communities they're in. They're in some cool communities, like Seaflower is a cool community. Shoreview, Lake House Cove's amenities were better than Shoreview's amenities next door. Sapphire Point, normal. Neighborhood pool, some trails, dog park maybe. Pretty normal everywhere I've seen them for the most part. So I'm gonna give it amenities like it's not a blah, but they do have amenities, but I'd probably go more in the 4 with this one, just because in comparison to what other options you could have. So you got 15, 20, 24 for Pulte companies to add to this list. Communities is our next guy on this particular list. Geography, let's talk about Lakewood Ranch. Windward and Lakewood Ranch, one of the first communities in Waterside. They have a Neal Signature community called the Alcove there. Neal Signature is the semi-custom branch of Neal Communities. Indigo was in Lakewood Ranch. Palm Grove is the newer one in Upper Lakewood Ranch off of State Road 64. So all over Lakewood Ranch. As you go down, middle of Sarasota, they did a community called Grand Park. So the cool thing about Neal is like it's very sister community based. Like you could say pick up Windward and drop in other places. In southern Sarasota, it's Grand Park. In Parrish, it's called Canoe Creek. Go down to Venice. Before Wellen was a thing, when it was called the West Villages, you had Grand Park. Then you go to the new district of Playmore, Wisteria, Avelina. They're all over the place. They're in Vistera, Venice, which is in northern Venice. They are beyond the coast. I think you're dangerous. I don't know, the thing about, they're not in Seaflower, but they do Palmasola. They have some of these niche communities up in the upper western Bradenton coast, and they're not stopping. I mean, the northern Venice, like all those new hospitals being built, Pat Neal is very involved in trying to satiate some of the affordable housing combined with revenue generating communities to boot. I think we could go 9.5 here. I don't think that'd be a crazy move. You gotta know what Neal is, and you can go to almost every part of town and do it, depending on what you like. Cost, I think it's gonna be a very similar to Taylor Morrison conversation, not to just continue to beat that horse, but they were the main competitor. Like if you were like selling a Palazzo at Esplanade Azario in 2021, the tug was looking at a Savannah 2 or a Kiowa in Windward in Lower Lake Ranch in Waterside. You're like, Waterside, I like the location better. Esplanade has golf. This one has better amenities. This one I like the model better. That's what you're going through. Very similarly, they had homes that I loved at like 880, 790, that ended up costing over $1 million, 3,000 square feet, and I got really close to pulling the trigger on a Savannah 2. I really liked that model. And at the time of the pricing, it flirted with a similar sized home at Toll Brothers in the aisles. And when I compared the design and the fixtures, features, the floors, the countertops, the patio, pool, I think that's where you get into tricky territory. They've had villas at $265,000 that the same villa sold 2 years later for $515,000. So depending on the timing, I really like the cost, and sometimes I don't. And I think because of that, I would price them very similar to Taylor Morrison. I like Taylor Morrison. I would say the smaller homes I like a little better. So they all build a great 60, 65 foot product. Neal doesn't a lot of times beyond Neal's signature go above that size. They don't build like a 90 foot a lot of times. But at 52 and a 45, I might like Taylor's Lazio better than I like the version of, just my personal opinion, just the layout, the boxiness, that kind of thing. The way it sits on the lot. All right, we're gonna go 5. I'll go 5.5. Quality, I think they've done better at handling scale, personally. It feels much more like a family company than it does not. Staff and everything, the people I know that have been there a long time. I haven't seen the same thing on like final walkarounds and stuff I've seen at others. They're going more for volume and like reporting to boards and people that like have bigger stakes and stuff. The quality, same thing I keep saying is if it gets too expensive for what they're willing to do on the design, the structural list, I don't like as much. I think that's a ding. And I do think you can go to a lot of places to do something similar, so we'll give them a 7. Amenities, very normal. They get in cool communities that they piggyback on the multiple builder situation. Them and Pulte, I think, have for the most part very, very normal neighborhood pool. A lot of times doesn't cross to the restaurant. Not a lot of golf. I think they have a golf community in northern Naples, but not a lot of golf in the Sarasota area. They have Boca Raton in Englewood, so I think normal. And we'll go 5. Okay, so that gets you 9.5. It's 5.5, so you get 15 there. This gets you to 22, and this gets you to 27. Toll Brothers. Okay, location. Simple conversation. Similar to Homes by Towne, sexy districts, not a lot of them. So we have 2 in Waterside, 2 in Wellen Park. They're the best parts you want to be in for the most part. I think they're interesting. But you can't do it in central Sarasota, not a lot of coastal options. They're not abundantly across all of Lakewood Ranch, just in the lower. They're not in the in-between places. Maybe resale with like Venice Woodlands, but you have Monterey, you have the Isles built in Lakewood Ranch, State Road University Parkway rather, above Fruitville. East of Lorraine, and then below that, which feels like BFE right now, but it's going to connect. It's called Monterey. I think that one's kind of underrated still, personally. They're not going to do that kind of stuff a lot anymore. Go down to Wellen Park. They have a pared down, more conservative version that they think is palatable for Venice, in their opinion. So it's a little more affordable product, a little smaller on average. They don't do everything they do in Lakewood. Solstice started, still building. Quick Movements are really interesting there right now. Open is the new guy. I just did a video on that. That by the time this post should be a week or 2 in front of it. That one's interesting too. It's not just Toll in that community as well. So because you're not everywhere, all right, we'll go 6. Cost. I think Toll holds it together pretty good. So it's kind of simple. They don't go like way down here and say like I'm gonna do villas and townhomes and all this kind of stuff. It's not that they haven't done that at any community. They usually go just 2 collections and they're like I'm either this one or I'm this one. But they do a couple interesting things. One, I think like it's all kind of nice. So it's one of the higher ends that you can do if you don't do custom, like I mentioned, but it's just like it's kind of a size floor plan thing for the most, maybe a little bit lot, but not in a crazy way. And they're all really nice. So maybe you in Lakewood Ranch, maybe you're like getting in there at 850, 880. It would have taken you 1.2 to build next door at the Lake Club. But then you could go up to 2 million if you wanted to too, but you're just getting a little bit more price per square foot across the board. And then Venice, I think they have some underrated affordability right now. Venice is one, I mean, if you look at Solstice and Open, they could be maybe the biggest benefactor against Taylor Morrison and Neal getting too expensive in the wrong category of home. Like, so if a Lazio costs $900 without a pool at Sky Ranch, have you looked at the Flora And then where do you see the builders sit in your mind as far as ranking? And these are creeping into some value that I think is underrated, but it's very hard unless you're like doing what I'm doing all day long, which no one wants to probably. It'd be very hard to catch that kind of stuff. So I think the way they position they're kind of no frills with it. They do nice stuff, but they don't do just infinite options, anything like that. Also with lots, they're one of the lots where you can't just go to their website and be like, it's 52 or 62 or whatever. You got to look at their map. But if you look at their map, it's really interesting. They're not all just uniform. So if you just catch the right lot with the fishtails in the back, the rear, and you might catch like an 89, 90 foot wide lot, which like does not exist in most places, just because it was like the shape of the street. And so it's like literally lot by lot. And then there's some uniformity in why the collection sits here versus here. And it is size related, but that'd be something to look out for too. So I don't hate the cost. I think that they give you a great option to do something you wouldn't have been able to do at the custom builders. So that food for thought there. I don't know if it deserves an A, but we're gonna give it an A. Because I'm running out of words. Quality, overall, awesome. They've had months during like the COVID era, solstice, where it took like 22 months to build a house that maybe should take 9, 10. The company culture and turnover, I've seen way more frequent than a lot of places. So it's very hard to have a consistent relationship with a single rep, which is my preference, across any of their communities in a consistent way. I have seen that a big anomaly in the Toll Brothers space. I don't know that much about the company personally as far as like why stuff like that would occur, but that is one thing I've noticed, and so I've almost lost deals with customers because of the customer service, and then that kind of stuff cascades down to everything, right? Like project manager, the builders, all that kind of stuff. So like. And I've seen like final walk around. I purchased a quick move in Toll Brothers house, and so I went through the last week of it and saw what it was like. Overall, I think they do really well. I mean, it's kind of like I like it despite of any of these things. Like it would be ideal if it was like the perfect experience, but even if it's not, I mean, they build a nice house and they're in nice areas. We'll go 7. And then lastly, amenities. Let's see. The word on the street a lot of times is, for how nice the homes are and the price point at which they are, the amenities were anticlimactic. When people were like, okay, I'm not going to do the Lake Club. The first regime of the Lake Club was like, it's real bougie, and then Genoa was built by Stockton, and that gave you like a 9. I mean, I think they started like $980K when they first built the last phase of the Lake Club, and then a lot of 1.2, a lot of 1.3, a lot of 1.4. But that community, when you drive in, blows you away. Like, looks like nothing else. Isles next door was like that landing spot of saying like that didn't work. Like, Country Club West and East sold out. Waterside didn't really exist in a big way, but like the amenities were just kind of normal. The kind of it was like weird because it was kind of kid friendly, but should it be like the positioning of who should live there was tricky. That's like not only my opinion, that's the customer experience. Monterey, loved a lot about what it is. I will remain that it's underrated. It's an underestimated location, misunderstood location. You can do things there that you can't do a lot of places, but amenities are normal. Oak Bend similar, Solstice similar, so I don't think you can get crazy with that. And because people love the homes and won't buy there because they're like, I want the price point puts you in wanting cooler amenities. So I think I'm even giving 1 ding for that. That's extra. All right, we got 14, we got another 21, and we have a 25. We are going to do DR Horton, I think. I'm trying to hop around where we're like adding to the value of the story that we're portraying. DR Horton is going to be our closest production builder. I think DR Horton's number 1 overall to Lennar, but they're different in like some of these categories as far as like the type of communities they build and where they build them. Geography, you have a good presence in Lakewood Ranch, but not all of it. So where they are, they build a lot, but they're not everywhere. So you have Solera. Solera at one time, in like 2021, I think I had calculated they were the most affordable total cost of living for what they were in Lakewood Ranch at the time. Because of like the fees and everything that came with it, it was one of the most affordable plays. There's still a little bit of a presence there. The big kind of guy on the block right now is called Star Farms. That is I think D.R. Horton's parent company is called 4-Star, but that is a big community. They're doing a lot there. It's multiple tiers of amenities, 55 and up element there. Some of the custom builders that were over here jumped in, Arthur Ruttenberg and some of these guys. The big weird thing there was like, you had the super custom and then you had DR next to them. But it gets you in the family districts, gets you in a nice district. But other than that, you're like, I mean, it's pretty spotty all throughout the rest of Sarasota. Like middle of Sarasota, you know, I mean, really nothing. Venice, Nokomis, really nothing. Palmer Ranch, like not really anything. Wellen Park, you don't see a lot of it. Where they play much more is in Wamama, Ruskin, Parrish. So they're going not only affordable builder, but they're going to affordable areas. So that would be the one thing to look at. Some of these big communities north of Tampa and north of Lakewood Ranch, northwest of Lakewood Ranch. That'd be one thing to really look at. But for all the apples to apples stuff here, I want to give them a big score as far as you could do something similar in all the regions that you'd want to be in, like Lennar, who they would aptly compare themselves to, I would think. So I'm going to go 3. It's more niche of a thing. Cost, they're one of the most affordable in every way you could possibly look at it. So they think that just cost leader wise, that would be one, if not the main sole reason that you might start at DR Horton. So I'm going to give them an 8 for that. Quality, I mean, they're doing the 2-story block. That's unusual. A lot of Florida, it's block wood frame. And I know they do talk about that a lot. Other than that, you're going to have no frills options, economies of scale pricing, stuff like that. Let's give them a 5.5 because of the block, but like limited options. Can't do it in a lot of places. Amenities, they went pretty crazy on Star Farms. Solera is normal. Just not a lot of examples. They're in some lagoon communities. But if you downgrade the geography because of the areas which they're based, then do you upgrade the amenities in the areas they're based is the question. You can go 5. No one's like, I buy this community because of the amenities necessarily. It comes with the cost thing. I'm already there. What does it have kind of thing. So we got 8, 9, 10, 11. We have 16.5. And that gets us to 21.5. Is that the right math? 21.5. Homes by Westbay. It's kind of a circle back now that we've covered Toll and Homes by Towne. Similar to D.R. Horton in some respects is they're not everywhere. I mean, they're not in Waterside. They're not in most of Lakewood Ranch, but beyond like 1% of it. They're in a really great neighborhood, a cool neighborhood, interesting one in Wellen Park, but one. So I don't think you get crazy there. Northeast Sarasota or above, or south Venice is basically your 2 options right now. I think they're going to do much more. I mean, I think what Coulter, Toll Brothers, Homes by Towne would be the foundation for what Homes by Westbay could be, if that makes any sense. So I'm going to go 4. Cost, because of the void filling, they are not only offering insane incentives right now, they're not a cheap leader, but they are a option that satiates a premium level home, both in size, quality, and location, against the alternative to going down or up, which I like. And they're mainly doing that. They have a clear thing they're doing that fits against the whole market, and that's mostly what they're doing. They're not saying I'm doing this, then I'm also doing this, and this, and then it makes it confusing. So to that, I would give it a little higher mark, honestly. Just my opinion of cost dynamics. Quality, I think you can do enough. You can't do everything. I think you can get a little bit higher end than you could at a lot of the Pulte, Taylor Morrison, Neal, Mattamy, MI option list from design and structure. So I'm going to give them 7 there. And I like the reps. It seems consistent. Amenities, it's kind of, they're limited by where they're at. And it's not abundant enough for me. So I'm going to give them a 4 on amenities. So we got 11, 18, 22. For Westbay, we'll do homes. I'm going to forget this abbreviation because I'm making it up. 22. We're going to do MI Homes, and then we'll finish with Mattamy. We have Sweetwater in Upper Lakewood Ranch, Nautique townhome and single family product in Waterside, sold out, but very recently. Hawkstone, random one, Middle Sarasota. Bastero, Venice, Magnolia Bay, Palmyra, Seaflower on the coast in Western Bradenton. I think where they've won so far is they've won on the townhome product a lot. There is more townhomes. I think there was like 220 homes in Nautique, something like that. They have a single family product, which I don't know how I feel about yet in Palmyra. Go in and out of liking it. And then the townhome product in there, if they haven't, it should be public knowledge, but it's coming, not. So they offer, like, when they've done the townhome products, they've offered the most affordable / most investor friendly. They were the cheapest by far total cost to ownership. I ran those numbers a bunch of times in the Nautique community. Seaflower is going to be really interesting for that too because of the location. If you're not familiar with Seaflower, I've done videos on it. It's one word, defunct flower farm. They turned into a whole thing, multiple builders. It's very, very coastal. Hawkstone puts them in central Sarasota. You just don't hear people talk about that one a lot, but it's still the location. I've heard it's focused on geography. They're in the Playmore district of Wellen. I'm gonna give them 9.5 because you are in Waterside, no availability, but we'll put a B in that bonnet for the time being. Cost, this isn't a blow you away at every turn. The cost has mainly made sense. And then you look at the Sweetwater, the incentives right now, you can get some deals. Townhomes, again, were the cheapest against the respectable comparable options in inexpensive districts a lot of times. So I've liked it mostly. Only knock, I'd say, is take Palmyra. You have Homes by Towne above them, and then you have other builders below them, and ICI above Homes by Towne as far as pecking order. Am I creeps? Some of their single families, and they did that in Promenade Estates. I saw people build 1.1 million. I'd just be careful with it. If do you want to build at the anomaly of what that builder typically does from a median cost or not? There's nothing wrong with it as long as you're aware, but that's the only thing. It's their single families creep into an area where you should step back and say, I could maybe do custom for this or similar. Occasionally, not all the time. So we'll give them an 8. I like everything else. Quality, I think it's gonna be similar to a lot of these guys as far as you can't custom, you can pick your options. I think they're a 5 probably. I don't know how much more you need to say about that. Amenities, cool, nothing crazy. They're in cool. They're in communities that also have cool amenities in the multiple builder stuff. But individualized, they don't break off a community by themselves and have the greatest amenities of all time, like an Esplanade or something. So I think you got to give them a 5 too for that. So we got 10, we have 18, 27.5. Mattamy Homes. Geography, one area, only Wellen Park. But so the Playmore district, they are the developer. They're very involved in that district. So you have the Wellen Park area, if you're not super familiar, is southern Venice, Florida. It's in Sarasota County. But you have this, of the cities of Sarasota, Osprey, Nokomis, Englewood, Northport. You get south of downtown Sarasota by about 45 minutes, and it's southeast, east of the coast by about 18 minutes. It's an exciting district. A lot of walkability, golf cart friendly. It's not this. It's 12, 15 neighborhoods, not 50 like Lakewood Ranch. The whole thing feels much more coastal. It's got a nice little lovely downtown. It's a quaint old retirement kind of town as a whole in the past. It's got 4 beaches within 18 minutes. It's got all that going for it. But they're not going to be. That's the only place you can go to get them. That's where you're going to come across them. But it's not just one community, it's multiple. So you're going to see them so they built a community called Renaissance. This was before Wellen Park existed. It's called the West Villages. This is where Grand Palm is, Oasis. They combined, rebranded. I've talked about this multiple times in the past, but then they added this district called Playmore. This is the one everybody's excited about because it's more west than the other one. It's walkable because the downtown's there. Cool Today baseball, Cool Today Park, the spring training facility for the Braves. They do a lot of live events. There's an open tiki bar. You got all that going for it. Really interesting. You will come across them there. Renaissance was old regime for the most part. Sunstone was one of the first communities they put into the new district. That has really interesting deals right now. Lake Spur is, I think, the most affordable walkable community that exists right now across the board. And if you have kids, that Wellen Park School, it's going to be a great location for that. They're in Palmyra. What am I missing? Brightmoor. That's the one I missed. Brightmoor is the 55 and up community. It's the only 55 and up I have seen from the Mattamy brand. It has really, really, really nice amenities. If you're looking for active adult living, you don't need the golf. Interesting. Del Webb is not in that area, so you can't do Pulte's version of the 55 and up, but all in this one area. So You could be as amazing as you want, but if it's in one area, that's a knock, 2 strikes of my 3 strikes. So from a geography diversity standpoint, I think I got to go 3. Cost, they're always in the affordable conversation, but mid-level. So it's not going to be a DR, it's going to be a normal build, but they're one of the more affordable. Some of the MI, some of the Mattamy products get you, maybe even some of the David Weeklies, get you a little bit below Neal, Pulte, and Taylor Morrison in a lot of communities. They offer like insane, Brightmoor was offering like crazy incentives too. So I like them for cost. Stay in their lane's the best way to look at that one as well. Quality, I think, is very similar to that same exact conversation. You can do a little bit, can't do everything. Haven't heard crazy horror stories, but as long as you're going in not thinking they're, you know, anchor builders or something, I think we gotta go 6. Amenities, amazing where they're at. But I just think the density at which, I mean, Palmyra has great amenities. Brightmoor has amenities that other people don't. I will say, like, if you take it to lifestyle, they will give you Wellen Park's perfect lifestyle, but none at Lakewood Ranch. All right, we got 12, we have 19, 21, 22, 23. All right, number 10. We're gonna go number 1's best, not 10. All right. DR Horton. 22 is Homes by Westbay, surprising. 23, do we have any ties? Number 8 is Mattamy. Number 1 is going to be the highest, obviously, here. All right, 23, 24. So Pulte is number 7 out of 10. 25. We have a tie for 25, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. We're going to do golf scoring. So we're going to have 2 6s. Instead of alphabetical. Homes by Towne and Toll are the 2 builders I compare the most. For them to end up this far removed is interesting. So Neal's number 5. Our next one down would be a tie of MI and Lennar, which means that Taylor Morrison is the winner of this little exercise. I don't think it's completely wild based on the ranking score, but yeah, I hope you guys found that valuable if you're still here. And that's it. Thank you guys so much if you made it to the whole video. I hope you found it interesting and valuable to you. Again, this is the Florida relocation guide. Please check out that new Home Geeks audit that I mentioned in the beginning. I think that's a really nice, this is all about, like, if you're watching this at a particular time of your search, what would, say you don't want a phone call yet, what's the most helpful thing? And I think it is along the lines of taking something like this and customizing it to you and your family. And then the very next thing would be like quick conversation. You got really everything you need. And now this is just about seeing it in person versus it being a thought exercise. And I that to me feels like the funnel of like the best way to help someone. So you got that. We have multiple other interesting things on the website. I mean, relocation guides and some of this more, not surface level, but macro level things. We have an email list. Check out the audio only version. You could, if this crazy, all the videos aren't gonna be this long, obviously. But if you're in your car, you want something like that, we are on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify. Most places you could find it. You can subscribe directly to this like interface called Podbean. And the audio experience is kind of nice. It's just I like listening like that. So the description boxes of the videos, we've been putting in the link, which allows you to then backtrack and say like just subscribe or whatever. But you can go to, it's called the Florida Relo Show. It's probably hard to find because it's new. But please reach out if I can get you on that. Thank you guys so much. My name is Adam Hancock, and we'll see you on the next episode.